Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Tilley. I'm the Chief Executive of CGMA. A very warm welcome to you all, and also to our online viewers and to those who've gathered together at a similar event to this in South Africa. Welcome to you as well. I don't think we've got an event on at the moment in the United States. We'd have some happy people and some miserable people there, I think. This is a very special breakfast briefing. We're still in party mode. We're celebrating the anniversary of the balanced scorecard, which I suspect most, if not all of you, have got in operating in your businesses. And we've been having a series of events starting in Edinburgh and now here down in London to recognise this very important invention, something that was invented by Professor Bob Kaplan, who is over there on the table to my right, your left, and to Dr. David Norton, who we're going to hear from later on this morning. And in those events, we've discussed a whole wide range of issues. We've had CGMA-sponsored research, which has gone as wide as talking about the state-owned enterprises in China, to supply chains, and obviously this morning we're very much looking forward to hearing about the research in the area of risk by Professor Regina Slag Mulder. We're really looking forward to that very much indeed, and she'll be with us in a minute. We've had the benefit of Professor Bob Kaplan's views on the research that we've undertaken, and that research is now available on the CGMA website. And we also had his views on how to improve health systems around the world, and I'm sure there's a lot we can learn from for the NHS and the 120 billion of costs that we have there, and the opportunity to do more, hopefully with less. On Monday, Dr. David Norton gave us a great summing up of the history of the balanced scorecard and how that's developed and how it is still relevant today, relevance obviously being important to us all. We're delighted to hear his views later on in this event. Also on the panel is Jim Morrison, and he's from the Association of the American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants, who are our new joint venture partners, and we put that joint venture together in January this year. We're very excited about it. It represents a community of over 500,000 people around the world, and the new designation, the Chartered Global Management Accountant. So with that, I will hand over to your chair for this morning, the very highly respected BBC Economics editor, Stephanie Flanders, to introduce the research and your panel. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much, Charles, and I'm glad to see so many people here. I can't really tell, looking at your faces, how many of you stayed up. Did you get as far as Colorado? Maybe the hardcore Pennsylvania, Ohio? Very impressive, those who were smiling who saw Ohio and the results being called. 4 more years of President Obama, but as we know, not very much certainty about what it's 4 more years of. Quite a lot, even in the next 4 months, let alone 4 years of uncertainty around the US economy, and therefore whither goes the world. So it seems to me a pretty good morning to think about risk and try and think about how it can be incorporated. It's not going to go away. When I became BBC Economics editor in the spring of 2008, I then went to have a baby in the summer. Everything was looking not too bad when I went on maternity leave. Then all hell broke loose. I felt I'd missed the story of a century when I missed Lehman Brothers and came back a few months later. I thought I've just missed the whole story. Well, now, of course, it feels like that was just the opening. It was a pretty dramatic opening, but it was the opening chapter. And that baby, that credit crunch baby, is just starting school, and it feels like I'm still dealing with all of this uncertain environment and the global economy. So I don't think risk is going anywhere. I think we're going to have a good debate, and I hope a sort of seamless involvement of all of you, both through responding to the questions that we're going to vote on in the course of the discussion, and also by putting in your own questions, which will come up on my screen. I'm reliably informed. You can put in the questions on your tablets following the instructions, and if you respond to the voting questions in the same way. You can also, I'm told, email or tweet your views with hashtag CGMAPM. So we're doing all forms of interaction. Before I introduce Regina Slag, who's going to outline the research that's been done, especially for you this morning, or at least you're getting the first glimpse of it, we do have a couple of votes that we would want to take right at the start, just to get a sense for how you currently view your boards and your thinking on some of these issues. So if we move to the first question, I'm confident that our board has a good grasp of the major risk issues facing our organisation. Of course, these are more or less anonymous, we should remember. And you have to put yourself in three obvious categories: yes, no, or don't know. I'm not sure that you can. You don't know whether you're confident. I'm not sure that that's whether that's possible. I know some people don't know whether they're confident. Maybe that's just a tribute to the long night last night. We have similar. We ask our audience in the BBC these questions, and the first part of the poll is always great because it says we get everything we know about economics from the BBC, and then you ask them what they know, and they don't know anything at all. It's always a bit embarrassing. I know that we're watching also these things moving around because the people online are taking a little bit more time to vote in South Africa and elsewhere. Is that pretty much, are we calling time on that question? So it's a pretty big, you're quite confident, you're not completely confident. We're going to actually discuss some of those issues in a bit later on after the findings, but this is our sort of taster. The second question, which is more about you: do you feel comfortable reporting risks to the board? Yes, no, or don't know. I guess it might depend on the kind of risks that you have to report. But it does look at least like the technology is working. Whether everyone's brains are working is another matter, of course. Oh, you're a pretty confident lot. Maybe when we've spent an hour talking about the risks, you will feel less confident. Information is not always empowering. Okay, well, I think we're going to hold these findings. I've written them down. We can refer to them later. But first, as promised by Charles, I think we do want to hear what you're all here for, in a sense, or at least to have a taste of this new research that's been undertaken. And let me introduce Professor Regina Slag from Vulovic Levin Management School to outline the findings. Regina.
Good morning. Welcome also on my behalf, and I'm very pleased to be here. And I also would like to thank the people from CGMA to organize this great event and to give me the opportunity to share with you some of the main headlines of the research that was sponsored by CGMA on risk reporting to the board of directors. Now, the first question, of course, is why is this important? Why should board members care about risk management? And there's a number of reasons, of course, that have come to the surface when we asked people that question. First is that, of course, risk management has has received increased attention in recent times. There's a widely held belief that our current business environment has become more volatile, more uncertain, and that explains why more and more companies are indeed paying attention to risk and risk management. And also in the current economic crisis, boards have been repeatedly, unfortunately, accused of not being sufficiently aware of the risks that their companies was facing. Second thing is that performance, and I would like to sort of... Performance is, of course, something that board members have always been involved in. Performance measurement, performance evaluation of the business, of the management team. But risk has been receiving less attention, less explicit attention, let me put it that way. Although they're both two sides of the same coin. Performance management and risk management have the same or share the same objective, value creation for the company and value preservation for the company. So it makes sense to actually not just look at risk performance, but also incorporate risk into the equation. So that's another reason. Boards hold the ultimate responsibility for the success or failure of their companies. So it's important that they're sufficiently informed about not just performance, but also risk. Because they play a crucial role in the strategic monitoring of the company and also in the risk oversight. So it's important that board members both have a good sense of and set the right direction for the company to take, but at the same time they also have to protect shareholders' interests. So again, that duality between performance and risk. And then finally, of course, there are the regulatory requirements. There's more and more corporate governance guidelines that have raised the bar on risk and risk compliance. So lots of good reasons why indeed board members are increasingly focusing on risk in relation to performance. Now, when we look at what are the key questions that board members have mentioned to us as being the questions to focus on, the first one is what are the fundamental risk factors, risk elements that drive the business results? So in other words, what events, what factors, what elements in the business environment could jeopardize the achievement of the company's strategic and financial goals? That's the first important question for board members to consider. Another question that was revealed was, of course, are the risks that the company is taking aligned with the business strategies that are being pursued? And are these projects, these initiatives, also in line with the risk appetite that the board has set forward? So these are other important concerns for the board. And thirdly, the question is, of course, are the strategic plans, and particularly the financial plans that are presented to the board for approval, have they been sufficiently, what I call, stress tested? In other words, have they been sufficiently scrutinized, analyzed with appropriate scenarios? Or do we just get one set of figures? Have they been tested for robustness? That's an important part. So these are kind of the three main questions that board members have come up with as being the risk-related questions. Now, why is this difficult, in fact? What are the challenges if everybody's convinced that it's important? What may be getting in the way of board risk oversight? So here I'm just listing some of the main challenges that were coming out of the research. So first is that in organizations, there's still a lot of attention being paid to performance, the P&L, the return on investment proposals, but there's insufficient attention being paid to the risk-adjusted return. So in other words, risk and return are still looked at very much in isolation. There's no real risk culture that is embedded in people's thinking, in people's actions. That seems to be one barrier. Another barrier is the fact that when we look at who in the organization is involved in managing risks, it's scattered across different functional domains. So you have people in operations looking at supply chain risk, for example. You have people in finance looking at all types of financial risks, etc. That's, of course, good from a specialization point of view, but it's not so good if each of these functional silos do their own separate reporting up to the board, because then you get a very fragmented and rather uncoordinated insight. So there's a lack in some organizations of a comprehensive company level, enterprise level view on risk. Another potential barrier or challenge is the fact that there's a lot of attention being paid to risk, but more from a compliance point of view. So it's very much about documentation and setting the right procedures to deal with risk, to meet the regulatory requirements, but it has a bit too much the flavor of a box-ticking exercise, as people will say, and not enough linkages with strategy and the strategy process. And then finally, what a lot of board members complain about is the information overload. They get tons of information prior to their board meetings. So if we're saying that we need to add even more information on risk, they get a little nervous about the information overload that they're faced with. So these are some of the main challenges. Of course, there may be other, but these are the ones that have been repeatedly cited in our research. And then in terms of the risk reporting itself, what are some of the key learnings? And this is just a high-level view. First of all, there is the fact that, oops, oh, it's been split in two. The fact that, first of all, there's clear trend towards more professionalization of the risk reporting. So companies tend to experiment with new formats, new methodologies, new tools. A lot of consultants are also entering this arena, advising their clients on how to do better risk reporting, which is, of course, an effect that has been strengthened or reinforced by the economic crisis, but only partly so. When we talk to board members, they say, we've been doing risk management, risk evaluation, risk oversight all along. It's just that what we were doing a bit more implicit before has now become a bit more formalized. Then it's also important to realize that when directors and on boards look at risk, they don't just look at the negative aspects of it. Risk is always perceived as something that is bad, that is bad news, with negative consequences and potential threats for the company's results. That's, of course, one part of the story. But we also see that board members take a positive perspective on risk, a more value-enhancing, value-creating perspective, because if you